Nothing breaks a manipulator's game faster than the moment their victim stops dancing to their tune and starts playing their own music. Now imagine this for a moment. Chosen one. You're trapped in a maze, walls closing in, every turn designed to confuse and trap you. But then suddenly, the maze shifts. The walls rearrange themselves. Not to trap you, but to reveal the truth of the game. You're no longer lost. You see the paths clearly. And the people who built the maze? They're panicking because their control is slipping. They never thought you'd figure it out this soon. They never thought you'd rise above the confusion while still inside the trap. Here's something powerful to hold on to. Studies show that most toxic people run the same three-step playbook. They idolize you, then they devalue you, and finally, they discard you. This cycle feels like a roller coaster. Thrilling at first, but terrifying once you realize you're just a passenger losing control. The scary part? Most people only see the ride for what it is after the crash happens. But not you. You saw it while the ride was still moving, and you decided to get off before the loop-de-loop. That's why they're scrambling. That's why they're upset. You broke their pattern, and thank you, chosen one, for being here right now. Don't forget to pay this message forward by simply hitting the like button and subscribing. Every share helps spread this truth to more souls who are waking up. It's on all of us to shine light on the darkness of manipulation. Thank you for being part of this mission. You're part of a force that refuses to be fooled or controlled anymore. Now let's dive into what's really going on. You've become the most dangerous person in the room, not because you shouted it, but because you quietly understood it. They thought their mental games would keep you tangled in confusion, guilt, and self-doubt. They expected you to flinch, to break, to keep playing the role they wrote for you. But you didn't. Instead, you looked beyond the surface. You saw the strings they were pulling, the tricks behind the curtain. What's worse for them is that you stayed calm. They never expected you to develop this kind of awareness, the kind that feels like having a sixth sense for lies and hidden motives. While they threw their emotional bombs, you smiled through the chaos, holding your peace like a shield. That peace? It's the one thing their manipulation can't crack. Let me share a fact that will reinforce your power. Research in psychology shows that manipulators rely heavily on confusion to maintain control. When their victims start seeing clearly, when they stop reacting emotionally and start observing strategically, the manipulator's power collapses. They lose their grip because their tactics depend on secrecy, on keeping you off balance. When you refuse to play, you take away their biggest weapon. You weren't just awake. You were awake while still in the middle of the storm, watching the patterns unfold, recognizing the signs and quietly reclaiming your energy. That kind of strength doesn't come from fighting fire with fire. It comes from burning the whole game down with quiet confidence. And here's the hard truth. This isn't just about catching on. It's about changing the game completely. They're upset because their whole identity depended on controlling you. Without that control, they don't know who they are anymore. You're no longer their puppet or project. You're a force of nature that refuses to be manipulated. Stay with me, chosen one, because this journey you're on isn't just personal. It's a wake-up call for everyone stuck in those toxic loops. You're not just breaking free, you're rewriting the rules. You're no longer part of the game. You're the one who walked off the set while the manipulator is still looking for their script. From here on, everything changes. The pressure shifts. The spotlight is on them to explain what just happened. And the best part, you don't have to say a word. Your peace, your silence, your refusal to react loudly speaks louder than any argument ever could. You're holding a power that many never find. The power of seeing through illusions while still standing strong. You're proof that manipulation only works when the victim plays along, but you stopped playing. You rewired your mind to spot the traps before they snap shut. So if you ever doubt yourself, remember, the universe always supports those who seek truth. Your awakening is part of a bigger plan, and though it might feel isolating at times, know this: you are not alone. Many have walked this path before you, and many will follow because you dared to see the game for what it really was. Keep this truth close as we move forward. You're chosen because you refused to be blind. You're chosen because you stayed calm when chaos tried to shake you. And most importantly, you're chosen because you're rising into your own power, no longer afraid of the pressure, because you've already survived it and made it your strength. So Chosen One, are you ready to break down this battle step by step? This isn't just another message. It's your roadmap to owning your power and seeing their games unravel. If you're truly one of the chosen, you'll feel that quiet pull, that inner knowing to stay right here until the very last word. Drop a comment with "caught on" if you're standing tall against their mind games and ready to watch the pressure shift back where it belongs. And if this message lights a fire in your spirit, don't forget to show love to the team behind this truth. Every bit of support, whether a like, a share, or even a small gift, fuels this mission to awaken more souls who are done being controlled. Your energy keeps this movement alive. Together, we're rewriting the story. Now let's dive in and uncover the truth they don't want you to see. Number one, they never saw you unmask their game while still sitting at the table, and that's what's killing them. Nothing shakes a manipulator more than when the prey stops playing dumb and starts reading the whole script while still on stage. Imagine you're in the middle of a high-stakes chess game. Every move feels like a trap, every whisper a calculated lie. The opponent expects you to fall for their tricks, to be blindfolded by confusion and emotional fog. But instead, you lift the blindfold while the game is still going on. You see every sneaky move before it lands, every hidden trap before it snaps shut. You don't just play the game, you decode it from within, and that truth is the dagger through their control. This is the moment that burns them alive. Most people don't realize they're being manipulated until it's too late. After the emotional crash, after the heartbreak, after the betrayal settles in their bones, that's the script the manipulators count on. Keep their victims tangled until the damage is done. But you're not like most people. You woke up inside the storm. While the chaos was still swirling around you, you saw the storm's eye, the calm, clear center where the game's mechanics lay bare. They never expected that. They expected confusion to cloud your vision, loyalty to blind your judgment, fatigue to dull your senses. They planned on you complying silently, crumbling under pressure, and carrying guilt that wasn't yours to bear. That was their blueprint, but you tore up the blueprint. You sat through the madness, eyes wide open, nerves steady, heart calm. You began to piece together the fragments they'd scattered, dots they hoped you'd never connect. You saw the pattern behind their petty games, the rhythm in their silent treatments, the strategy in their emotional sabotage. They could feel it. Their jokes lost their punch. The sly jabs stopped piercing your armor. The quiet treatments, the manipulative silences, they all bounced off your new shield of awareness. Your spirit didn't just survive, it clicked. And once that light switched on, there's no going back to darkness. You weren't fooled by mood swings or fake remorse. You saw the calculated moves. They had a script written long ago, not out of love or care, but out of control and power. This wasn't random drama. This was a cold, rehearsed play, and you cracked the code. But here's the real blow. You didn't have to confront them or call them out to shatter their world. Your quiet knowledge alone became their worst enemy. Your calm presence turned into a mirror, reflecting back all their lies and pretenses. And mirrors terrify manipulators because they show the truth they desperately want to hide. That's why they're unraveling. It's not just because you caught on. It's because you caught on too soon. Before their plan could fully take hold, before they could finish breaking you down, before they could silence your voice forever. They don't know what you'll do with the truth you hold, and that unknown terrifies them more than anything. You became the silent threat they never anticipated, the shadow in their mind games that refuses to be ignored. Their panic is proof that you broke free before the trap closed. You took back control without firing a single shot, and now they're left scrambling in the dark, exposed and off balance, while you stand steady in your power. Ask yourself, Chosen One, why does this cut so deep? Why does their discomfort feed your strength? Because their power was never real. It was borrowed from your confusion, your fear, your silence. When you claimed your clarity, their whole foundation crumbled. So don't feel sorry for their shock or anger. It's just proof you won. You're the player who learned the rules before the game ended. You're the one who rewrote the ending while everyone else was still stuck on the first page. Now hold on to this truth tightly. The moment you decode a manipulator's trap while still inside, it is the moment you become unstoppable. Their mind games lose their grip because you see the mechanics behind the mask. You anticipate their moves, disarm their tactics, and refuse to dance to their invisible music. You're no longer their puppet or plaything. You're the conductor of your own symphony. And the pressure? That pressure is theirs to carry now. The weight of exposure, confusion, and loss of control falls squarely on their shoulders. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the calm that breaks it. Remember this, no one loses power without a fight. Their panic, their unraveling, their attempts to regain control, they all prove one thing. You're a threat to their survival, and that truth, more than anything else, will fuel you as you rise. You've taken back your story before the final chapter even began. You saw the game, learned the moves, and walked away free while they're still trapped inside their own web. That's real power. So stay awake, stay steady, and keep your eyes wide open. Because the game will keep changing, but your awareness is now your greatest weapon. And if they try to play the same tricks again, you won't just see the trap, you'll dismantle it before it's even set. You're not just breaking free, you're rewriting the rules, and that's the hardest blow of all. Number 2, you didn't react. You rewired the battle while they were still playing. They expected fireworks, but you gave them the stillness of a forest after the storm. Imagine this. You're in the middle of a battlefield, arrows flying, explosions everywhere, and everyone around you is screaming, fighting back, losing control. But you stand calm, like a mountain unmoved by the chaos. That mountain doesn't need to shout to be heard. Its power lies in its silence, its presence, its unshakable stillness. That's exactly what you did. They lit the fire, baited you with their chaos, poked at your weaknesses, hit every nerve they thought would crack. Their plan was simple. Get a reaction, an outburst, a meltdown, anything that would let them label you unstable and keep their grip on the narrative. But you didn't fall for it. They expected a meltdown. They wanted a show. Because to manipulators, your reaction is their stage. Your anger, your tears, your defense. That's their applause, their proof you're crazy or too sensitive. But instead, you rewired your response mid-battle. While they hurled emotional grenades, you rewired your mind to see through the explosions. How did you stay so calm? Why didn't you fight back like before? Why didn't you fall apart like I planned? Those questions haunt them every day now. Here's a quote to hold on to. Silence is not empty. It's full of answers. You weren't silent because you were defeated. You were silent because you were mastering yourself. You weren't broken. You were processing, sharpening, evolving. They were used to the old version of you. The one who explained, over-explained, apologized for things that weren't your fault, begged for peace, tried to fix what they kept breaking. That version made their manipulation easy. It was predictable, comfortable, a script they could rewrite anytime they wanted. But in the heat of the chaos, you stepped off that script. You chose not to play their game anymore. Imagine a snake charmer expecting the snake to dance on command, but the snake simply curls into a tight ball, refusing to move. Confusion, panic. The charmer's control shatters because the snake no longer plays their tune. That's what you became, a force they couldn't predict or control. You didn't argue. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't beg for clarity or validation. Instead, you saw the setup. You recognized the game. You took your energy back like a thief retrieving what was stolen. That's not just maturity. It's a spiritual upgrade, a level of growth that shakes the very foundation of manipulation. You stopped fighting to win arguments. You started fighting for your peace. This shift is the moment the power flipped. They're uncomfortable now because you're no longer the person they understand. You used to be an open book, their favorite chapter to rewrite. Now you're unreadable, a locked door they can't pick, a code they can't crack. They throw shade, expecting you to flinch, but you don't. They go silent, hoping to provoke a reaction. Still, you stay unbothered. They twist the narrative, trying to trap you in a web of confusion. You simply walk away, removing yourself from the drama altogether. That terrifies them, because it means the game is over and they lost. The real pressure isn't on you anymore. It's on them. You stop reacting, and suddenly they're forced to face their own reflection without your emotional feedback to hide behind. No more gaslighting your feelings, no more blaming your reactions. Now they must sit with the truth that they can't control you anymore. Without control, their tactics fall apart like a house of cards in a storm. They underestimated one thing, how dangerous self-awareness really is. They thought the threat was your voice, your anger, your defense, your arguments. But the most powerful move you made wasn't speaking loudly. It was choosing to protect your peace instead of performing for their dysfunction. And that choice, that's what shook their world. Picture a puppet master suddenly realizing the puppet cut its strings. No more pulling, no more control. The puppet moves on its own terms, and the master is left empty-handed, powerless, and exposed. You became that puppet master's worst nightmare. Here's another truth they can't swallow. The strongest weapon you can wield is your calm in the face of chaos. By recalibrating your understanding in the middle of their battle, you rewrote the rules. You transformed from the player they expected into the player they feared. And the chaos they created to trap you only became the stage where you showed your strength. Why does this unsettle them so deeply? Because they thrive on reaction. Without your reaction, they lose their fuel. Their power depends on stirring the pot, creating drama, and watching you burn with frustration or pain. But when you refuse to light that fire, when you don't feed their drama, their whole system crashes. Ask yourself, chosen one, what happens when the puppet refuses to dance? When the flame refuses to catch? When the victim refuses to break? They lose. This is the power of emotional sovereignty. Choosing your peace over their poison, choosing your clarity over their confusion, choosing yourself over their control. You moved from reaction to response, from chaos to calm, from being caught in the storm to standing above it, untouched. And now you are the one holding the reins. So when they try to bait you again, remember this. Mastery is not shown by how loud you shout, but by how steady you stand. You've already rewritten your story. You're no longer the one who crumbles under pressure. You're the one who thrives in it. You rewired your mind mid-battle and took back your power. That's why they're losing their minds. And that's why you're winning this war without firing a single shot. Number 3, they got hooked on the old you, the one that played right into their hands. They weren't addicted to your love. They were addicted to your leash. Think about it. They grew comfortable with a version of you that was asleep, blind to their real intentions. The version that doubted itself, stretched too thin, apologized for things you never did wrong, and explained yourself until you felt lost. The version that trusted blindly, hoping everyone had good intentions, even when the signs screamed otherwise. That version was easy prey. They built their empire on your silence, your softness, your loyalty. Like a spider weaving its web, they spun their control around the you who didn't know her own power yet. But that spider's web just got torn apart. You didn't just grow, you woke up. Something clicked inside you. You stopped handing them excuses and started handing yourself truth. And that truth, it changed everything. You stopped playing their drama games. You stopped swallowing their lies. You began asking the questions that made them sweat in the shadows. Why am I still putting up with this? Why do I keep bending when I'm meant to stand? Here's a truth that crushes them silently. They were never addicted to your love or kindness. They were addicted to your lack of boundaries, to the space your loyalty gave them to rule unchecked. Your softness was their playground, but you refused to be the sandbox any longer. Now they're desperate and lost. The you they leaned on, the silent one who swallowed truth and spat peace, is gone. And that absence, it leaves them exposed and powerless. They miss your blind loyalty. They miss the easy emotional access they once had. They miss confusing you like a riddle with no answer. But most of all, they miss control, their favorite addiction. That control, it's vanished. You outgrew the shell they fed on. You broke the role they cast you in. And now you're untouchable, unreachable, unmanipulatable. Yes, they're angry, but it's not about you changing. It's about you waking up. You stop being the character they wrote. You're living your own story now. And that's the plot twist they never saw coming. Number 4, Their power was built on your doubt, but now you hold your own certification. They built their throne on your hesitation, but you've burned it to the ground with your certainty. Manipulators don't need loud chaos to break you. Most of their power comes from quiet whispers, the subtle poison dripping into your mind. It's not in the screaming, it's in the sneaky little doubts planted deep inside. Those sideways comments that make you question your memory. The backhanded compliments disguised as praise. The "are you sure" questions that unravel your truth thread by thread. They wanted your confidence shaky. They wanted your trust in yourself to flicker like a candle in the wind. Because as long as you looked to them to define who you were, they held the remote control to your reality. That's their game. Dismantle your sense of self so slowly and quietly that you don't even realize it's happening until you're lost inside it. But that version of you? Dead and buried. The one who needed permission to breathe. The one who apologized for things that were never her fault. The one who begged for clarity only to be gaslit again. That version no longer exists. You stopped outsourcing your worth to people who never earned the right to hold it. You stopped chasing validation from those who feared your rise. Your foundation shifted. Now your confidence isn't built on fleeting compliments or their approval. It's built on clarity, the kind that burns through lies like sunlight through fog. You became self-certified. You learned to trust your gut, your mind, your soul. You stand tall on what you know, not just what you feel. And that, chosen one, is the final nail in their coffin. Because without your self-doubt, their claws have nothing to latch on to. No emotional levers to pull. No cracks to sneak through. No confusion to exploit. They hate it. They hate that you don't jump at every accusation. They hate that you don't scramble to fix what they deliberately broke. They hate that you can walk away without justifying your peace. That gnaws at them like a silent disease. It's not just your strength that terrifies them. It's the fact that you no longer need them to tell you who you are. Your confidence flows from within, unshakable and pure. It's internal, not reactive. Once you know yourself, their manipulations become obvious, like trying to hide shadows from the sun. They keep trying their old tricks, but the spell is broken, and they know it. Number 5. You peered behind the mask and saw the puppet strings. Charm is the costume, control is the real performance. At first, their charisma was like honey, sweet, smooth, and impossible to resist. They knew exactly how to talk, how to smile, how to say just enough to pull you in without raising a single eyebrow. Their compliments felt warm, their jokes familiar. The stories they shared, they made you feel special, like you were the only one they'd ever truly opened up to. But deep down, something didn't sit right. You couldn't put your finger on it at first, but your spirit was quietly raising red flags. The warmth you felt wasn't real, it was calculated. That vulnerability you thought was genuine, it was rehearsed, a script they ran to gain your trust. They weren't trying to connect. They were building a foothold in your mind, a trap disguised as affection. Imagine a snake shedding its skin, revealing not a harmless creature, but a cold, calculating predator beneath. That's what you saw. Charm as a mask-hiding cold strategy. What broke their game was simple. You didn't stay fooled by the surface. You kept watching, noticing the cracks. You saw how their kindness only appeared when they wanted something, how compliments turned into control, how deep conversations weren't about bonding but gathering ammunition for later. You saw through the charisma. You exposed the calculation. And that terrifies them. Not because you attacked, but because you recognized. You stopped confusing charm with character. You stopped mistaking performance for authenticity. And that truth, it's a poison to manipulators. Now they're nervous. You're no longer dazzled by their mask. You don't lean in when they get emotional. You don't fall for fake apologies or staged growth moments meant to pull you back in. You've seen behind the curtain, and the illusion, it's shattered. They feel the shift, the quiet awareness radiating from your energy, and it unsettles them because deep down, they know their control is slipping away. You see them for who they really are, not the polished image, but the hidden puppeteer. And nothing terrifies a manipulator more than someone who can tell sincerity from strategy. Number 6, you broke the game by refusing to play their psychological Olympics. They set the bait, waiting for you to bite, but you chose silence instead of the trap. They wanted you to react. Every jab, every backhanded compliment, every guilt trip, every cold shoulder was designed to pull you into their twisted game of emotional wrestling. They wanted you tangled up in defending yourself, proving yourself, fighting for their approval like a contestant desperate to win a rigged contest. But here's the truth. It wasn't about love. It was about power, leverage, control. For a while you played along, not because you were weak, but because you believed in fixing the cracks, in mending what seemed like misunderstandings. You didn't realize you were stepping into an arena they'd set up for you to lose. Then something shifted. You stopped engaging. You stopped explaining what they already knew. You refused to jump through hoops that kept changing shape. You saw the truth. It wasn't about clarity or resolution. It was about control. And when you pulled your energy out of their ring, their whole house of cards collapsed. Your silence wasn't confusion. It was clarity. Your refusal to compete wasn't weakness. It was strength. You weren't ignoring them. You were dismantling them. Because mind games only work if someone is feeding the tension. Without your reaction, their performance had no audience, no fuel, no power. And that's when panic hit. The stage they built for your breakdown flipped into a spotlight on their own lies and manipulation. They hated what the light revealed. They weren't ready to face themselves without your emotional chaos to hide behind. You pulled the plug on their show. Now, the silence is deafening. The game is exposed. But no one's playing. They try to provoke, to bait, but you've leveled up. You don't flinch when they go cold. You don't rush to fix what they've broken. You don't lose sleep over their control-driven opinions. And that, more than anything, shattered their hold. You didn't win by arguing louder. You won by refusing to enter the match. You reclaimed your peace, and in doing so, you forced them to face themselves. And that's a confrontation they never prepared for. Number 7, you didn't just survive their gaslighting. You decoded the whole playbook. They tried to rewrite your reality, but you became the author of your own truth. They thought they could twist your mind until you couldn't tell fact from fiction. Every lie came dressed in confidence. Every denial was a calculated move in their game of smoke and mirrors. One minute, they'd change the story. The next, they'd act like you were the one losing your memory. It was a slow unraveling, designed to turn you against yourself, to make you question your very sanity. But you didn't fall for it. You didn't stay confused. Instead, you started taking notes, mental breadcrumbs left behind by their deception. You noticed how their stories shifted every time they were cornered. You saw them dodge responsibility by flipping the blame back on you, like a magician distracting you with one hand while the other pulled the strings. You caught on to their tactics, the charm that appeared when they sensed you pulling away, the victim act they played when their grip loosened. You didn't just see the pattern, you tracked it, piece by piece. Imagine dismantling a machine from the inside, understanding how every gear and lever works. That's what you did. You reverse engineered their manipulation. You figured out the timing, the words, the emotional triggers they used to control you. You stopped absorbing blame and started collecting evidence. Not always physical, but spiritual. Your intuition sharpened. Your discernment grew louder. You no longer needed apologies to validate your truth. And now they're terrified. They're not just angry that you escaped. They're afraid because you know the game inside and out. You could explain their tricks to others. Your clarity threatens to expose them to those still blinded by their lies. Because nothing scares a manipulator more than someone who not only got free but understands the whole playbook. You're no longer a victim of gaslighting. You're the one who saw the wires behind the curtain. You kept your mind intact while they tried to make you doubt your own name. Now the rules have changed. They can't lie the same way. They can't charm like before. They can't twist your words or rewrite your story. The spell is broken, and they feel it. Deep down, they know you don't walk away quietly. Someone like you shines light on the things everyone else is too afraid to see. Number 8, you became the unpredictable wild card in their perfectly laid trap. They thought you were a map they could read, Instead, you became the wild terrain they can't navigate. They studied you like a blueprint, every reaction, every silence, every flicker of guilt mapped out and filed away. It wasn't just manipulation, it was cold calculation. Every move they made was based on patterns they thought you couldn't break. You were their predictable piece, moving exactly where they expected. But then everything changed. You stopped being a puppet dancing to their strings. You stopped reacting from habit and started responding with awareness. The old you who explained, apologized, and tried to fix what they broke? Gone. You no longer fed their game by over-explaining to people who only listened to manipulate. You became unreadable. One moment silent, the next completely gone. One day forgiving, the next disappearing without a trace. You don't argue, prove, or beg, you just move. And that drives them insane. Because their power depends on predictability. Their strategy crumbles when they can't stay 2 steps ahead. The guilt trips lose their sting. Passive-aggressive digs bounce off your armor. The charm that once held you captive? It no longer works. Now they're scrambling, frustrated, grasping at shadows, trying to decode a puzzle that doesn't exist anymore. You became the wild card in their carefully scripted game, the variable they never saw coming. Their entire plan was built on you being emotionally consistent, on you trying, talking, giving endlessly. But now you move with divine timing, spiritual clarity, and unshakable self-respect. You act when it's right, not when you're pushed. You engage when it aligns with your truth, not when baited by their tricks. They can't play chess with someone who isn't even on the board anymore, and they know it. Your unpredictability isn't chaos, it's elevation. You no longer operate from wounds. Those wounds have transformed into wisdom. That kind of growth can't be manipulated, predicted, or controlled. They're still stuck trying to crack the code with an old manual while you've already upgraded to a level beyond their reach. Number 9, your stillness isn't weakness, it's unshakable authority. They thought your silence was a crack in your armor, but it's the fortress they can't breach. They watched you go quiet and thought you were scared, confused, or defeated. They saw your stillness and assumed it was a pause they could fill with more manipulation, more control, more gaslighting. They thought your silence meant you were weak, a soft target waiting to be broken. They were dead wrong. What looked like submission was actually a calculated strategy. What felt like retreat was a powerful recalibration. You weren't afraid. You were done wasting your breath on people who had already decided not to listen. You stopped explaining yourself to those who twisted your words. You stopped arguing with those who wanted a reaction, not resolution. Your silence wasn't born of fear. It was born of power. Because once you reached a certain level of clarity, you understood that peace speaks louder than any argument. And now they don't know how to handle you. You're not pleading. You're not defending. You're not engaging in their chaos. You're simply present. Your energy protected, your boundaries firm, your spirit still. And that stillness, it roars louder than any confrontation they tried to drag you into. Louder than any accusation they throw. Louder than the chaos they attempt to stir. Your silence isn't empty. It's heavy with authority. It carries the weight of someone who knows exactly what they're dealing with and refuses to stoop to their level. It's the calm of someone who has already decided what their peace is worth and will never compromise it. And that's what breaks them. The moment you stopped reacting, they lost control. The moment you stopped speaking, they lost access. Every quiet step you take is a statement. Every boundary you uphold without explanation sends a shockwave. Every time you refuse the bait, every time you walk away without looking back, your stillness echoes. It unsettles them deeply because it proves you no longer need their approval, their twisted version of the story, or even their presence to validate your power. They underestimated silence. But silence isn't the absence of a voice. It's the presence of sovereignty. It's a declaration that you no longer negotiate with manipulation. And once you reach that level, the game stops being fun for them. Because now all their noise is just the sound of their power slipping through their fingers. Now that you've seen how deep their mind games go, and how you've already broken free, remember this. Your power lies in awareness, stillness, and unwavering truth. You're no longer playing by their rules. You're rewriting the game entirely. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe for more truth, and drop 777 in the comments to show you're standing strong. Share this with someone waking up to their own power, because together we rise and break every chain. Stay fierce, chosen one.